Hello, this is Terrorontor, and today it is my pleasure to welcome you to a Terrortorial for skeleton spawners, or in this case, more specifically, skeleton experience grinders. Now, a skeleton spawner is this block right here. It has a little spinning model of a skeleton in it. These can be found in dungeons in the overworld. There is a 25% chance that every dungeon you find will be a skeleton dungeon, with a 50% chance that it'll be a zombie dungeon, and a 25% chance that it will be a spider dungeon. Dungeons can be found in the overworld by looking for naturally spawned cobblestone, and particularly mossy cobblestone, which is only found in dungeons. Now, how do these work exactly? Well, you have your little skeleton inside, and this particle effect that comes on if a player is within range for it to spawn skeletons. The skeleton inside will spin faster and faster and faster, and when it flares up, which happens anywhere from every 10 to every 40 ticks, that means that if it flares up once, it'll take between 10 and 40 seconds for the next flare to occur. It'll spawn, or it will try to spawn, 1 to 4 skeletons if it is not too bright, and not too bright means that it has to be light level 7 or lower. Also, there have to be spawning spaces available for those skeletons, and there cannot be more than 6 skeletons, or more than 5 skeletons, within a specific radius of the skeleton spawner. If all of those criteria are met, it will spawn from 1 to 4 skeletons every 10 to 40 seconds. Those skeletons can spawn in midair, and they will spawn without fail so long as the criteria are met. So what's up with all this glass? Well, this is a 16 by 16 sort of cutout. This shows you the area in which a player has to be for skeletons to spawn. There we saw a skeleton spawned. If a player is anywhere within this 16 sphere, right, sphere that goes out 16 blocks from the spawner, skeletons will be able to spawn. So it's a pretty large area players can stand in for skeletons to spawn. It doesn't just go out in that direction, it goes out in every direction. I only built it in that direction because this is just for the sake of example, just to give you a visual representation of how far out skeletons can spawn. Now, this isn't actually how far out skeletons can spawn, this is how close the player has to be. How far out skeletons can spawn is shown by this glass right here. Skeletons can spawn in a 8 by 8 by 3 area, and that's where their feet spawn. So a skeleton's feet can spawn here, and its head will be up over the glass, and that's fine. And as you'll notice, this isn't totally centered, and that is because skeletons technically spawn not from the center of the spawner, but from the bottom northwest corner, which in this case is that corner right there. That means that skeletons will spawn out 4 blocks to the north and to the west, but only 3 blocks to the south and to the east. They will spawn 3 blocks high no matter what. Their feet can spawn here. You'll notice that we are missing a glass block right at the bottom, and that is because they cannot spawn right below this with their head in the spawner. But they can spawn standing on top of the spawner and all that good stuff. Now, like I said earlier, a spawner will only spawn if there are no or if there are 5 or fewer skeletons within a certain radius of it, and that is shown by this right here. As you can see, we have a 9 by 17 by 17 little area marked out by glass here. And if there are 6 skeletons in this area, no more will be able to spawn. So just for the sake of example here, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and now, no matter how long we wait, we can watch this to see when it flares up again. More skeletons will not be able to spawn. So let's just stand here for a second just to prove a point. Wait for this to spin faster and faster until it will eventually flare up. This can take anywhere from 10 to 40 seconds, like I said earlier. And here we go, it's getting faster and faster. And yeah, I think either way, skeletons will never spawn from this. I think you get the idea. So now that we know all of those things, as well as one last thing actually that I forgot to mention, mobs can fall from any distance into water and they will not take fall damage. And actually, one other thing I want to talk about, falling. Now a mob can fall 22 blocks and that will leave them at half a heart. That is because when a player falls 3 blocks, they don't take damage, and the same is true for mobs. The first 3 blocks don't deal any damage when you're falling, and every additional block after those 3 deal a half a heart of damage. So 22 minus 3 is 19. They take 19 damage. Each damage equals to half a heart. That'll leave them with exactly 1/2 of a heart left, so they are 1 punch from death, right? We want them to fall exactly 22 blocks. Now, there is a slight problem with how a skeleton spawner would normally work. Normally, you would want to push them off of a ledge with a water current. But if here, let me actually just show you this really quick. I'll set this up. Alrighty, so here we have our skeletons up here. This is a 22 block drop onto that stone block down below. And if I push these guys off you go, off you go. The ones that fell that way will die, of course, because they fell slightly forward. But these ones are left at exactly one punch to kill, you know? Now what you would normally want to do is push the skeletons off, not with your body, because then you get shot. You'd want to push them off with water. Alright, so let's set up a little bit of water right over here. Boop. And actually we can block that off with a sign or any old thing, because we don't want the water to go the whole way down. We want the skeletons to get pushed off by it. So let's place a sign right there, and then unfortunately because of a glitch we're going to have to place a block here to actually stop the water from flowing. And now you'd think that if we push skeletons off the edge with this, that's just the same as being pushed off by a player, so they would be left with exactly half a heart. Well, let's test that. Let's just drop a couple off for the sake of example here. 3, 4, 5. I think that'll be enough to give a good example. Now as you can see, one of them actually died in the fall there. And the rest of them aren't exactly dying in one hit. Some of them do, some of them take 2 hits. That's not exactly what we want. So take that into account, the fact that if you push skeletons off of a 22 block drop with water, it's not consistent. It does not deal a consistent amount of damage. So using all of that information we just collected, we're going to look at this one last spawner I have sitting over here, and we are going to find out how to build a maximally efficient skeleton grinder out of this spawner. Alright, so the first thing we've done is build a little room surrounding our spawner. Now as we can see, this is a 9 by 9 room. The height it goes 2 up above the spawner, and it doesn't have a floor quite yet. Now, you'll remember that this isn't quite the right size. A spawner technically only needs an 8 by 8 room, but I decided it's worth to go out the extra 1 block in the southerly and eastward directions, just for the sake of symmetry. I really like the whole odd number thing. So this is the starting size of the room. The next thing we need to figure out is the drop, right? The size of the room was easy. That's just a matter of making sure that the room is large enough to accommodate all possible places a skeleton can spawn. But the next thing we have to find out is how far do they need to drop. And to find that out, we're going to be using this information right over here. This little area that tells us what range we do not want skeletons to be in, right? Ideally, we don't want any skeletons to be in this area from the spawner. We don't want any skeletons to be too close to the spawner, because that could stop future skeletons from spawning as easily as we want them to. So let's just look at this area up here and see how far do we want the skeletons to fall. Well, we want them to fall at least 4 blocks, right? But just falling that far would leave them standing right here, and we actually need them to be even 2 blocks lower than that. We want to make sure their head never gets up to this glass, and because we're going to have them fall into water, which will break their fall, we actually need them to fall 1 additional block so they won't bob up into the glass. So from the spawner, we're going to want to put our floor down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 blocks. We're going to need 7 blocks of space and then a floor. And that is just the perfect way to do this, so that the skeletons will never swim up into the radius that we don't want them to be in. Also, we just saw the skeleton spawn right up on top of the spawner. We don't want that to happen. So you can put a block on top of your spawner, any block at all, so long as it doesn't emit light, and that will prevent skeletons from spawning on top of the spawner itself. So we're going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And let's just make sure we're doing this correctly. 1, 2, 3, 4. We want them to be down. We want the floor to be not down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 blocks, because that would leave them actually standing with their heads in this. We actually want it to be down 2 more blocks. So we want 7 spaces, and then the floor down actually 8 blocks beneath the spawner. So I'll build that, and then I'll see you again. Alright, so here we have a room of about exactly the size we want it to be. It is a total of 9 by 9 by 10, I'm pretty darn sure, going up 2 blocks above the spawner and 7 blocks below it. Now as you can see, we definitely have more than 6 skeletons down here, but more are continuing to spawn, and trust me, it's pitch black in this room. The only reason I can see is because of this night vision potion. Now the next thing we need to make sure happens is that the skeletons do not take damage dropping down here. So we're going to take our water buckets, and we're just going to line one wall with water buckets to make sure that all of the skeletons get pushed over to one side. But as you can see, that will leave a little bit of space where they can still fall. And we do want to direct them all to exactly the same block, so it'll definitely be good for us to move them a little bit farther than this. Let's just put our game in peaceful mode so we can actually see what we're doing without all these skeletons everywhere. So we're going to dig out this floor one block farther so we can have the skeletons fall down a bit. We're going to place a water bucket on this side. We're going to place a water bucket on this side. And then right here where the water buckets meet, we're going to need to grab a sign, which we actually already have one of in our inventory. Place it down right there. And then we're going to want the skeletons to drop yet another block. This is just to make sure, right, that if you have your skeletons, let's say, not dropping another block, and you're just trying to push them forwards right here, they will get caught up, they'll be bobbing around, and there's no guarantee they'll go into this door. Like, if we made a door right there, for example, they would bob up and around it, and there's no guarantee that they would go in. They could get stuck here for a pretty long time. But if we have them drop down just a little, actually, we can even just have them drop down to right here. That'll be fine. That'll make it so they don't spend nearly as much time bobbing around. We can place another water bucket right here. And as we can see, if we're down here swimming, once you get stuck down here, it would be pretty hard, especially for a skeleton, to get back up. It's actually impossible for a skeleton to get out of this little hole once they fall in here. So we get them in there, and we make them start flowing along on their merry way. Let's actually block off this water for now as we look at a couple of other things we need to do. We need to make sure that the skeletons don't end up going back up into this area. So ideally, we want to make it so that when we're piping the skeleton, first we need to bring them up so then we can make them fall back down, right? We want to make sure that they never go back in to this glassed area right here, right? We want to make sure that horizontally, they never get within 8 blocks of this spawner. Now it's pretty easy. We already have a 4-block space, just that's in the room itself, and then the wall is the 5th block. So we need to make sure that before going back up, these guys go out at least another 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks, and that's where they're going to need to go up. So let's do that 1, 2, 3, 4. That is 4 past the wall, so now they're a total of 9 blocks away from the spawner. In just the right spot so that they won't mess up other skeletons spawning, we can make ourselves a little tube right here for the skeletons to travel down. And then we can put a wall up right there, because this is where we're going to have the skeletons start going upwards. So let's place our water back down, and now how do you have skeletons go upwards? Well, like any mob in this game, except for slimes, I suppose, skeletons automatically swim upwards, right? So we're going to place a sign right there, and then we're going to place a bucket of water up above it. The skeletons will get pushed along down this hallway. I'm just going to emulate skeleton. I'm going to always be holding space, right? Oops, yep. And look at that, you automatically swim up. I wasn't flying just there, that was just swimming naturally. So you're going to want to just do this alternating sign water pattern. And that'll make it so that as you swim up, you'll see that I'm constantly hitting air pockets, so I'm never going to drown, and I'm just going to move upwards pretty darn quickly. Now, before we build that entirely, and oop, we're having some blinkers, let's just throw down another night vision potion. Before we build that completely, we need to figure out where we want the skeletons to fall exactly, so we can see how far up they need to go. And for me, I want my skeletons to fall right up on top of my spawner, right? So the spawner is right down there. We need to make sure that they never get within 4 blocks above it, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4. That means that if we can make them fall, let's say, right onto that block, or actually any block, as long as their feet never get below here, right? That'll work just fine. So for this example, let's have the skeletons fall right here, and then let's say you're waiting for skeletons, you can just wait right on top of your skeleton spawner. Skeletons are going to fall right onto this block when all is said and done. So I'm going to count upwards 22 blocks to make sure we know exactly where we want them to fall from, and then I'm going to build this up to meet that. Alright, so now I figured out that to fall right here, to fall 22 blocks, they're going to need to fall from this point right here, and from there I just very simply connected this to right here, so I can see, okay, I need them to go the whole way up here, I need them to get to the top of this tower, and then to fall off of right there, right? So from there, it's really easy to just start fleshing all this out, just to make sure that the skeletons will not end up falling out of the sides or anything. We can just bring these down. We just want to make this one solid pipe, essentially, that our skeletons will flow through. And then from there we're going to finish putting in the signs and the water for this tube, and then we're going to find out how we're going to make the skeletons fall, and how we're going to make the skeletons always be left at exactly 1/2 of a heart. Because we figured out that water isn't a super consistent way of getting the skeletons to fall, but we don't want our skeletons to be 2 hits from death. We want them to actually die the instant you punch them. So let's figure out how we're going to do that. Oops, night vision potion flickering away again. So first I'm going to go in here. I am going to make sure that this is all full of signs and water. I'm just doing this alternating pattern over and over again. And then we're going to figure out how to make our skeletons fall without water. Alrighty, so we are just about up to the top of this. There we go. Now what we're going to want to do is have a water stream starting right here and pushing the skeletons not off the edge, but just right up to it. So let's put a sign there, put our water there, and there we go. The skeletons will get pushed to be standing right on this block. And you're probably thinking, okay, they'll stand right on this block, but they're not going to walk off that edge willingly, are they? Well, the thing is, they don't need to. Let's put ourselves back in normal mode so I can kind of show you what I'm talking about here. And let's actually break up through the ceiling so I can get out of here. And let's just place a couple of skeletons down. Oh, darn it, they took damage though when I spawned them. This is still a good example though. Watch this, right? As a couple of skeletons come down this tube, right? Because remember, these guys will be constantly spawning. They're going to push each other off the edge. And as they push each other off the edge, slowly, you know, they'll get dropped. They'll get down to exactly 1 hit from death. And the thing is, this actually isn't a bottleneck in the build, because they'll still spawn and push each other off just as quickly as if you had them get pushed off with water. There will be like a 10-second, maybe a 5-second delay on the very first skeleton, and after that, this will work like a charm. So let's plug that up, let's go down to here, and let's actually see how long it takes to get enough skeletons to get to level 30. Alrighty, so we know that it takes exactly 120 skeletons to get to level 30, or at least that was the amount I got when I tested it just a couple of minutes ago. So I'm going to assume that I'm not crazy and that I know how to count to 120. But I might be slightly off, you never know. Gotta leave room for that human error. But either way, we know that it takes about 120 skeletons to get to level 30. So I am going to put our game into normal mode. We're going to look at our entity count. See, our entities are right up here. It says 0 out of 16. And yeah, I did kill myself a couple of times to make sure my experience started at 0. So it says we're at 0 out of 16 entities. Now if an entity comes right here, that number will go up to 1. So we're going to wait until our E gets to 120. And then we're going to go on a huge skeleton killing spree, pretty much. I'm going to set up the phone, the timer on my phone, and we're going to see exactly how much time this spawning setup takes us to get to level 30. Now this is pretending we're AFK or something, which is very, you know, that's what you would normally do with a spawner. So I think this is going to be an awesome test. Let me just set up my timer, my stopwatch. Now I am going to come in here. Well, first of all, I guess, let's set my game mode to 0. Here I am in survival mode. Ooh, I'm already at level 30. So let's kill myself really quick. Boop. There we go. At level 0, have a full hunger bar and everything. Now I am going to say options, set my game mode to normal, and now as soon as I hit the back to game button, I will start up the stopwatch, and we can see how long this takes. (16 minutes, 40.5 seconds). And test number 2 will be starting in 3, 2, 1. (15 minutes, 39.9 seconds). And here we are about to do trial number 3. Then we're going to take an average of the 3 trials to get a general idea of about how long it takes to get to level 30 using this spawner. Starting in 3, 2, 1. And 15 minutes, 37.5 seconds. And on average, this takes 959.3 seconds. So that would be this plus about 20 seconds. That is about 16 minutes on the dot So if you're looking for a farm where you can go AFK for 16 minutes, come back, one-hit a bunch of skeletons. I mean, look at this. You know, you kill them each with one hit exactly. And hit level 30 off of that, then this is probably the farm for you. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, leave a like. If you'd like to see more videos like it, leave a subscribe-y thingy. If you have any questions or comments, please leave a comment or send me a message. Tune in next time to see some more science. Next time we're probably actually going to be looking at slime farm physics, because there are some things I don't actually know about slime farms that I think will be really interesting to learn. So, thanks for watching. See you next time. Brokema Farm. Terrorrontor is out of here.